Hello and welcome to the Dungeon Masters Guildhouse. This is a weekly podcast in which I, your host, Matthew Whitby, sit down with people all across the tabletop, RPG, and surrounding space. And this week, I'm delighted to be joined by Bee Zelda. Hello.
That's the sound of the crowd cheering for me. Yes, thank you.
There's a video online which is like an hour of like those like pre-recorded canned laughs played at random times throughout the hour.
So you don't feel so alone?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also terrifying, though. That might be the background to my nightmare.
Just people laughing and clapping.
Random laughter. Yeah. I don't like the idea of that at all. I also don't like sitcoms with like laugh tracks. I find it very distracting.
It's weirder when they're removed. Have you seen some of the tape?
Oh my gosh. Like trying to watch Friends or what's that show with Bazinga?
I know the one. It's not the Sheldon. It's Sheldon. That's the one in it. But
yeah, Big Bang Theory. Yes. It's horrifying without the laugh track because they also wait for like the laughter to happen, and it's just awkward.
You can just imagine like if our conversation flowed like that, it would be the case of like, and then the next part, and then it's
intermittent silences just make you feel uncomfortable,
which I think it kind of makes sense for us being both podcasters. That kind of we feel the need to fill the silence with with sound,
and we edit out the silence too. Okay. If there is any.
I know I audio boost the silences. I make them extra crispy.
Oh, good. So the listeners can really appreciate it.
Really enjoy them. But speaking of the listeners, in case they haven't heard of all the wondrous things that you get up to, would you like to give like a synopsis? Is that
okay? Yeah. So the synopsis of like my work experience within the tabletop industry, I like to believe that it's short, but it's also kind of like, I'm just going to go ahead. So I'm a podcaster. I originally started with the Broadswords, which is a 5e actual play podcast. I've done a handful of other shows in between before Roll20 picked me up to do a show with them, where I streamed Indie Showcase for about a year with my co-host Jess. In terms of other podcasting, I have a show called Anime Attaché, where we review the first seasons of an anime. I am a player in Power Play, and we're on our 4th season, and that's a streamed show. I do so many like 4-session campaigns.
Yeah.
Like in the past couple of months, I've played Dune, I've played Space Bears. I was a witch or a wizard. I'm not really. I think I was a wizard. I have saved the world as a child. It's just, so many one-shots that I tend to do. So that's like my overall synopsis, but I'm playing a game every day of the week.
So I guess I'm like my immediate kind of question like is off the bat of like you must play so many systems.
Yeah, you want to know what my secret is about it all too? No. I don't learn the rules. I just show up, play, and hope I did the right thing.
I just come up. I'm here to roll dice. I don't care what dice I roll.
Yes. You mean I wasn't supposed to roll 15 D4s? Oh, it's a 2D20 game. Well, I'll do my best.
So then I guess like so when you did the Roll20 like indie showcase, is it quite exciting knowing that kind of like each and every like episode you are kind of like coming into like a new kind of exciting game?
I loved it. And for what it's worth, I did actually have to learn quite a few of those games because I think I ended up GMing 9 out of 10 of them. So it's harder to bullshit when you're a GM versus when you're a player.
Yeah.
So I learned a bunch of indie games. And honestly, the best part for me was being able to cast everybody because I've made so many connections in the tabletop space that I just wanted to be like, you're a cool person, you're a cool person, you're a cool person, and just bring everybody into, well, it was a Zoom call because, the world. Yeah. And that was just everything for me.
So then is that kind of alluding to the fact that like you typically like, do you find yourself like if you could sit anywhere at like a tabletop RPG, do you typically play a role or do you like to like kind of elbow yourself into the DM role?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have like if it's like 50-50. There are some things that I absolutely love to GM. I ran Bluebeard's Bride for Magpie Games, the organized play. Ooh. I think I ran something like 30 games of Bluebeard's Bride. So it is my absolute favorite to GM. It's like a feminist gothic horror where I'm just like running you through rooms to make you feel uncomfortable and terrified and spooky. And that I will GM till the day I die. But like, I hate DMing Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know all the rules and I'm stubborn and I don't want to learn all the rules.
I think like I've had the chance to kind of go from the kind of like dice pool games like the D6 based games. And I think like once you kind of like get a taste for some of those, it's like there are aspects of D&D that's pretty clunky.
Right? It's just like, it's so involved, you know?
Yeah.
I just want to show up to a table, roll 2 dice maximum, and call it a day. I enjoy the story aspect more than I enjoy the mechanics of it. And D&D is very mechanical.
So is that one of the aspects of like, it's Bluebeard's bride, isn't it?
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. I was worried like, oh no, what type of beard does he have? Is it full beard? Is it
graybeard?
I knew it was. But what are like some of the aspects that kind of like running like 30 games of that? So it was organized play as well.
Correct. Yeah.
So, but that's another thing as well. What I kind of love about anytime you get to play like a scenario over and over and over is you get to kind of see like the divergent paths.
I loved like mostly men would play the Fatala character, and I always thought to be so fascinating. They would either lean towards that or the Virgin. They usually didn't touch any of the other. I shouldn't say that. The Animus, which is like the rebellious type of character. Like everybody tended to gravitate towards certain character tropes, and they all tended to play them in very specific ways. So I kind of fell into the path of like, I think I know what you're going to do. So here's how I'm going to make it more terrifying for you.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, so the Bluebeards is quite not like it's story driven in the case of like it's
absolutely
So how is it that you kind of, I guess, I'm again, it's a case of like there's so many rules out there. I don't have it's dice light, but it's kind of resolved through what's the
powered by the apocalypse. So it's like a 2d6 system. Either you fail, it's a mixed success, or success. Very, very simple. Yeah. And then whatever happens in between, I make up on the spot.
Okay. So I take it. So what were like some of the highs? I guess I'm actually let's focus on the positive. What were some of the highs of like running through it like 30 times?
Honestly, seeing people sweat. It's the most ridiculous thing ever, but I will never forget. There was this young man. It was his first time even playing a tabletop game, and he's like, "I'm kind of uncomfortable with this game, but I really want to try and get into it." So I was like, okay, you know, we always go through the safety tools at the very beginning. We list lines and veils, things that we don't want to cross, and things that will fade to black, because it is a game that deals with a lot of very serious content. And a lot of men will come into it and they're like, I don't know if I can deal with like feminist gothic horror, but I want to try. And so at the end of this game, we're doing like a little bit of a round robin where I'm like, what did you enjoy about it? What was kind of too scary for you? And we get to this guy and he just lifts up his shirt and his armpit sweat was from like his elbow to his belly button. And he's like, I think I was afraid this game.
Well, I must admit, like when you said like, oh, you know, it's making people sad, I'm like, oh yeah, that's sort of like people are on the edge of their seats. They're feeling like, no, you mean like physically,
literally.
Like, well, okay. I must admit that I think there is nothing more, I guess, empowering for like I'm a scary DM. Like I've instilled fear in the play. Again, everyone had fun.
Yes. It's always good to check in too every now and then. Like, I can see that you are on the verge of tears. Is this because you're afraid, sad, or upset? And you know, they'll give you a thumbs up, thumbs down, or like, I need to go.
Yeah. Wow. So, I guess I kind of want to like, I guess like almost flip the questions on their head then. And obviously, being kind of a player in or host of kind of play podcasts and of course, I'm kind of fascinated about like because like playing at like a home table versus like playing on a stream. I realize physically the same, but different.
Oh my God, so different.
I'm curious about like
so different.
Yeah, do you mind like I guess like digging into like some of those differences?
Yeah, I mean, I can come at it from my perspective because I recently had a conversation with a DM, my little brother, who ran a game, like a home game for me, a couple of my friends and his friends. And we butted heads a few times. And I just assumed it's because, you know, we're siblings. Of course, I'm going to call you a little butt face. But at some point he pulls me aside and he's like, I'm having a really hard time with you as a player because you're very about the performance of it. And you are ignoring all of the roles in the game. And I was like, yeah, isn't that what D&D is about? And he was like, no, like I get when you're streaming, it's more about the performance, but like I need you to like do the actual math. Don't just make up numbers on the spot. Please roll the dice. And that made me realize, like, I am a performer when it comes to tabletop games. That's why I don't really need to learn the rules. I absolutely respect and understand all the work that people put into it, but I spend most of my time doing actual play podcasts, actual play streams. So for me, it's about, I have 2 hours to cram in as much entertainment as I can versus sitting quietly and comfortably at my desk with like 5 blankets on top of me and rolling a dice. So there's a really interesting divide in the playing of it and the performance of it.
Do you think it also kind of like, does it impact the type of characters you feel you lean towards or you kind of bring to the table?
I play the most obnoxious characters possible. And in a home game, turns out it's not always appreciated. Had to learn that one the hard way.
I guess it is, I guess, because like Venice, like you, like within the space of like a playcast, you want that tension, you want that kind of like thing of like, oh, I don't really know what their intentions are. Whereas for home games, I imagine most people like we're a team of friends. We're here,
right?
Like,
can we work together, please? Bee, please stop trying to go against the party. Stop lighting things on fire. You know.
I feel like that's a poignant example of like I did set some things on fire. Like things got a little bit out of hand. But then I guess so. Is other than kind of being, I guess, antagonistic, would you say that's kind of like the characters you I guess I'm just curious. Like, is it the case that like you knowingly kind of almost like play, again, to use like a wrestling term, you play the heel to kind of like get the kind of like reactions out of people, or is it just the fact that you from experience you kind of know that kind of leads to, I guess, entertaining viewpoint from like a viewer?
I mean, I do go into it with the purpose of being entertaining. I don't try to be like the antagonist. I just often end up that way because it's so much fun. Especially, again, check-ins are very important. So I'll get the consent of the group. Like, can I bully you for this game? And if I got thumbs up, I'm going to go for it.
Okay. So I guess it is like it's that kind of building like the trust you have in the players to be like, I'm gonna be like, I'm not being mean to you, I'm being mean to who you're pretending to be right now. And it's gonna be
and I'm grateful I have enough people that I've played games with that I can trust them to do that. Often it'll take one game that I will have played with them like 3 years ago. We'll happen to play another game on stream for something, and I will sometimes just forget to ask, and I will call their characters like insulting names and try to play it off like I'm the cool one. I'll be like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were playing. So it's just, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
So I guess I'm curious then, like looking across, like, so you, if I heard you correctly, you kind of got your start with broadswords.
Absolutely. It was my first time playing Dungeons and Dragons ever. It was for that podcast.
I do want to talk about broadswords, but from then to like now, do you feel like you've changed much as a player?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I didn't even know how to play tabletop games. I'd only kind of heard of D&D, and it was because I think it was in Stranger Things, TV series. That was my intro to it. And then it was the Adventure Zone. And I was like, if I look at my very first character, her name is Maypree, and she was kind of like very lighthearted, very helpful. She always wanted to do what was best. And that was so much fun because as Bee, I'm a very lighthearted, kind, easygoing person, but that's not always what's interesting to play. So over the years, I've discovered like the kind of characters that I can really play off of other people, or the kind of characters where I can help spotlight others. Or if nobody's willing to take the spotlight, I can be the person that is ready to monologue for 15 minutes.
I guess it's that interesting because obviously, like in the times where I'm sitting in it as like a GM, I'm always kind of being aware of like obviously trying to make sure that everyone has their time in the spotlight. I imagine like at least within like the need for that is almost like 10 times, like it's 10 times more intense because it's I don't know, it's such a weird dynamic of like how it like takes like an experience that I know I've played home games, but cranking that up to like 11.
Yes. And as a player and a GM, it's kind of your job to make sure everybody does get a spot at the table, because most of the players were experienced and we know how to make sure everybody does get like their time. It shouldn't just be like the spotlight on that one player, not unless that's how the story is.
So I guess I'm curious then, like, do you have any like tips and tricks for like, I guess like diverting the spotlight? or like what if you notice that you're like this person needs some time in the light, what are some things that you could like lean into to try and
ask them leading questions. That's usually the best way. Like, what do you think of the situation that just happened? How are you feeling? Is there anything I can do for you to make you feel okay in what's going on? Or ask them about some of their deep, dark past, because everybody has a deep, dark past. And that's usually a good way to get some information out of a character.
Yeah, I like the idea that like there's like three people standing there with like the novels of their backstory, just like I just give me a chance to talk about this. I've been dying. Like, oh, dude, wait till you get to chapter 3. Oh my god, my brother, he does some things.
Oh, the ultimate evil, always. It's always a brother.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be like either like twin sibling. It's like kind of like big betrayal. It's like, he not only stabbed me, he took my magic shoe, or you know.
Classic.
There you go. But then, okay. So as I mentioned, then, so going back to like broadswords, then, how did you kind of, I guess, like starting that, and that, well, again, one that being your introduction to like tabletop RPGing as a whole, and playcasts. Like, if you just throw your mind back, how do you feel like after like the first session?
I was terrified after playing it for the first time. I learned pretty early on that I was not only using my microphone backwards. I just had so many technical issues. Podcasting was hard in the beginning, and then trying to figure out how to play a character. I picked the simplest character. I picked a barbarian, ancestral path. I think a berserker. They have nothing interesting going on. They are the most boring character I've ever played in my life, but it was easy for me. And it was a very, very good intro because I think it was me and another player, or maybe it was all three of us. No, two of us had never played D&D. And then our GM played it a lot. And one of our other players, she did her best.
Yeah.
So it was rough going in the start, but I like to believe that you can't quite tell, but the audio quality it's like you're listening through a tin can with a string.
In fact, but sometimes that's a vibe. Yeah, that's the kind of like. I guess it works well if you're doing that sort of like 1960s like noir kind of like
old-timey,
old-timey coming in of like, oh yeah, no, this is really they've really gone in on the audio foley. But and then I guess kind of comparing that to now, because what is it? Broadswords is into its I just checked episode. Well, season 3 starting off with like it.
So in terms of recording, we're actually wrapping it up. For personal reasons, I did have to step back for the very last session that is yet to be recorded. But everything up until then, like, we are wrapping up the end. We're going to war, we're doing the fighting, and hopefully saving the day from the betrayer, which is a god that we accidentally released in season 1.
it always comes back to bite you. It
right.
So I guess you kind of touched on something interesting then. So you've kind of like, you've now done the spectrum of, again, one shots, kind of those short kind of 4 sessions, I guess, tiny arcs, and again, multi-seasonal spanning kind of campaigns. Would you say, like, do you have like, I guess they are all different flavors, and it may be hard to like pick a favorite, but if you had to pick.
Okay, I have a very hard time remembering things. So truthfully, like one shots that are a 1 session, 2 to 4 hours, those are perfect for me.
Yeah.
I do love a good 4-session campaign because it is more memorable and you have time for growth, like that rise and fall. And then there's other things like the broadswords. I think we have, I'm going to pick a number at random, like 40 to 50 episodes. Yeah. And then Q Times on their channel with Power Play. Oh my gosh. I think we also have 40 episodes. So like, and those are unique and wonderful in their own way because like, that's a lot of time to develop a character. Like so much growth can happen, but it also has to be like a mutual thing. Like I have to grow with the characters that I'm playing with. Like they can't grow without me and I can't grow without them. So it's a lot of I don't even know what that word is, like bonding that's necessary, collaborative work to make it happen.
Because I guess it's in the fact, like, so much of like when you sit down to like say, okay, I have this character concept in my mind, it doesn't necessarily survive the first session.
My character in Power Play certainly didn't. I'm like, I'm gonna play a little robot alien who is super strong. Turns out they're a baby. Like, They're not a baby. They're just very soft and they need a lot of help. And like they don't ever hurt anybody. They never use their powers for bad. And that's not really what I normally like to play. I like to be overpowered. I want to be strong and I want to like threaten my enemies. When this character threatens, they're like, I'm gonna close your eyes for 5 seconds. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, I'm gonna literally step on you. You are. I'm not like. What do you do? No, fair. And so is that like a common trend? Like most sessions, you like, this is who I want to be, and then within like the first 10 minutes, it's like, well, okay, I guess I'm not, but this is also cool.
Usually, yes, because whatever I have in my mind, it doesn't take into account what the other players are going to do. Mm-hmm. So based on their personalities and what they can bring to the table, I will usually try to fill in whatever gaps are missing because I'm comfortable playing most personalities.
Well, I must say, yeah, it's kind of, it's interesting kind of being that kind of reactive. And in the same way that like I guess that's what you kind of need to be in podcasting. Like I can't remember who I said this to. It's like being a podcast host is just a series of reacting. It's like you're listening, but you're always like on the mind, like, I'm looking for a segue. I need give me that segue, and then I can get in, and then we can go to the next question. And then I'm engaging in the conversation, but there's a lot of like back processing stuff. And to try and do again, I only do it with like one guest at a time, but like being aware of like, okay, there's 4 other players. I need to be aware of like who's doing what and where I can suitably kind of engage. I think I'm basically saying I don't know how you do it.
I mean, I think you would be very good at it because you are comfortable listening and finding ways to segue, because a lot of the times I want to jump in and be like, oh, and to set them up for something else, somebody else will talk. And then I'm like, darn, missed my moment. But then I just have to listen and wait for the next chance to do that. And it'll always present itself.
Yeah. I suppose there's always that when the moment the sun hangs over, you just like pat your leg and go, anyway.
Yes. Okie dokie. And now.
So then I guess as well. So in kind of learning and kind of, I guess, building upon your kind of like characters, what would you say is like, in your experience, has been the I guess largest segue from, I guess, like from like, this is what I thought I was going to be to this is what I am? Or is it still your little robot alien friend?
It is Ulez Gallia, my little robot alien friend, because we started playing this only a year ago, actually. We've been kind of chunking our seasons. We do 10 episodes a season, give or take. And I had a lot of different ideas because also the premise for this game and the system that we're using is superheroes.
Yeah.
And unlike a good portion of the world, I'm not super into superheroes. I know I've seen all the Spider-Man movies and most of the Marvel stuff. So I'm aware of it all kind of on a surface level, but I've never really been invested in it. Mm-hmm. So I tried to pick the easiest thing possible for me. And it's like, alien lands on Earth, wants to learn about human stuff, is very strong and dangerous. No. But literally one of our players had that idea. So on the spot, I was kind of like, oh no, what are we, like, I gave them a Kamehameha move. Because I was genuinely ready for them to wreck shit. And then it was kind of like, oh dear, what do I do now? Okay, they are a baby. They are very helpful. They are very kind, but they're also incredibly naive and have no understanding of like why humans would be mean. So I had to do basically the complete opposite. And now, because again, 4 seasons a lot has happened. Like we play for 3 hours a week. For 10 weeks until we take a month break. So a lot has happened to this little bean and a lot has changed them. So they're not at all that same person. If anything, they're kind of leaning a little bit more into what I wanted for them, where they have that level of intelligence, that level of self-awareness, they have goals, they have powers that can be used. If they're, like your classic Android robot, they can hack into almost anything. So they're super useful that way. But if you hit them with something, they'll just like crack and shatter. So pros and cons, and it's just not the direction I wanted, but I'm really, really happy with eventually where it went.
I was when you say cracked and shattered, and now referring to them as bean, I feel like they're too cute. You can't let them get hurt. Don't hurt the bean.
You shouldn't. Nobody should hit Ulez.
So you kind of like, I guess, with your kind of experience of like, I guess, coming to a whole range of like, again, RPGs, I'm kind of fascinated about like what your creative process is for like coming up with characters, because I guess, do you have like, I guess like I guess more like a checklist of like this, or is it the case of like, I know the premise of the RPG roughly. I let's go, I guess, like, let's go trope shopping. Is that like a
kind of. So it's 50-50. Sometimes I'll look at the people I'm playing with in the system and the game, and I will workshop something often with the people. That is my best case to kind of build a character. If I'm left to my own devices, I will just think back at all the anime I've watched and be like, okay, what character am I in the mood to play? Vegeta? No. Goku? I think I'm gonna play Frieza, and then you kind of go from there.
I mentioned that again. I was going to say I'm not necessarily a connoisseur of anime in the same, but I respect the fact that there is never going to be a lack of characters to draw inspiration from.
Never.
I think I've yet to watch like an anime that isn't like, okay, so this is the 23rd character we're being introduced to, and it's episode 4.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Like, okay, I think it quickly descends to like my way of best enjoying it is the fact that I'm not very good at identifying names, so I just go with nicknames, and then I just go, God. Oh yeah, you're hot and cold man.
Yes. You're a sleeping bag teacher.
Yeah. Yes, you're the person who probably should be arrested. So literally is a case of like you kind of draw a good amount of inspiration from like there's some characters,
and that's like trope shopping, like you said, because like there's a lot of tropes that I really enjoy. Like I love the arrogant, overpowered characters, but I've modeled many of the characters I played off of them, but I have to be careful with those types, because unless I'm with the right group, they can just kind of come off as mean. So then I'll lean towards like the Goku type, where he's just like friendly and powerful and wants to help.
So I guess as well. So is there ever some point of like where you kind of think, okay, well, let's subvert this trope. Let's kind of go in with the appearance of one thing and then kind of have that kind of like, haha, I'm not who you thought I was. I've been wearing a fake mustache or whatever people do these days.
100%. I got to do that in a Faeforged. There were a podcast and stream campaign where I based my character off of Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen. It's okay if that doesn't mean anything to you.
I'm trying my best not to go like glassy eyed. I'm just like,
yeah, those are names. Most well known as Angry Tattooed Man. Okay. So I based my character off of him and then a little bit of Eren from Attack on Titan. But mostly Sukuna. So basically, I was just like this mean, grumpy, useless at fighting. We would, roll for initiative. And as this character Ruse, they would just be like, you know what? I don't really want to fight. I'm going to go take a nap over there. And I would just give up for the whole combat session. That's, again, it's not always easy to play, but I think I made it work. And then at the very end, you found out that they were really trying to help the team and they worked their butt off to make sure everybody was safe. But the whole time, my character was butting heads with everybody on the ship because, like, Ruse is lazy. Ruse doesn't ever contribute. Ruse doesn't even fight in combat. Why do we have this person on our ship? And it's because I was really helpful, but nobody was supposed to know.
Yeah, I was literally while I was laying there napping, I was doing the taxes. And I was make sure everyone had a packed lunch and
getting you a cheese string, a little bit of Go-Gurt.
I must admit, it's always a case of like when it comes to creating characters myself, there's always two wolves in my mind. It's like one is like, you should lean into a trope, just because, like, especially when you're thinking of like making something accessible for like other GMs and stuff like that, seeing something that like, this is someone I know, this is someone that easy, and this is like, it conveys the message perfectly. And then there's always that second wolf like, yeah, but you could just make it really complicated. You could have that plot twist of like, suddenly, the person you meet at the end is secretly the evil mastermind behind the whole thing.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's always that balance. I guess I guess I'll just pose it as a kind of question then. Like, in your experience of like when you've been running and you've kind of been handed like an NPC, how much freedom do you like? Do you like a good amount of like, this is who they are, or like?
My NPCs are always tropes. Almost always, because they're so easy for the players to pick up and be like, oh, I know what kind of person that is. which does often give me the space to be like, oh, if you think you know them, I can flip that around. The very first campaign I ever ran was Monster of the Week on like the Greyhawk YouTube channel. I don't even recall. But anywho, it was like a 10 episode session that I was just running. And I had so many NPCs to keep track of. And I would just, okay, this one's Valley Girl. This one's business person. This one's CEO you want to take down. This one is a lord in a lair that is also a frog. Some tropes, some things that I just had to work with.
No, that kind of makes sense, because I think it is that case of you want the players to kind of naturally kind of gravitate to think like, okay, I get this person's deal, like I know what's going on there, and then
I've dealt with them before, I know what to do.
And again, hopefully it doesn't always devolve into like, okay, so I stab them. I'm gonna
it does sometimes. It really does.
That can't be helped, but you do what you can, and it's sometimes to work out like, okay, so now this happens, the stab contingency plan.
There's always a stab contingency plan.
I must admit, as a GM, I don't think I make them enough. I think I always I'm too doe-eyed. I'm always like, oh, my players wouldn't do that. No,
until they do.
Yeah, they always do. So more broadly then, I guess kind of just being involved in playcasts more generally. What would you say is like your favorite part of just being involved in them?
I think it's that moment where like maybe you're 30 minutes into a game and your GM's kind of set something up. And as a player, instead of, I don't know, doing exactly what you're supposed to, all of you have that moment as players where you're just talking to each other as characters and you are 100% committed to the bit that you are. And I love those moments. And then of course we bring it back and we're like, oh yeah, we have to roll dice. This is in fact an RPG game. But I love those moments of like monologue, or that's dialogue. That's what I'm looking for.
I mean, sometimes it can be monologue of like, I've got my novel out and it's time to read chapter 3 where my brother, betrays me and steals my shoe.
Yes.
Well, so I guess I was, no, I had a question, but I've immediately forgot it.
Oh God, ADD brain right there. I respect that.
What I will go instead, I said, well, then I guess on the other side of the coin, then is there like a part that isn't necessarily your favorite?
Part of me wants to be like rolling the dice, but no, I don't dislike that. I don't know. Sometimes I have to learn a new VTT live for the first time while we're streaming, and I get very overwhelmed and I will click everything. And sometimes it's better to click less. So if that's like my only, I don't know. I mean, there's not really a lot of moments I dislike.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, it's like that's probably the best. Like that's what you want to hear. It's like, no, I like it all, but yeah, no, I've played around with a good number of virtual tabletops, and until you kind of like grok it, and you kind of like you've been working with it for so long that you kind of like it's organic to kind of I think like this is why with like some of my friends and stuff I've been using I think was it Owlbear Radio, which is literally just it doesn't do anything fancy. It's just drag and drop. Everyone can drag stuff about. Everyone has access to pen tools, and therefore everyone's there's a moment where everyone's kind of engrossed in the session. One person happens to zoom out, and turns out 4 people have been doodling in different corners of the thing. And
love
it's like
that.
It's kind of the kind of like, oh, you guys have been working away. I see. But in a not so smooth segue, I have kind of remembered my question.
Perfect.
This is again brain scanning it. It's going.
Yep. Recovering memories.
I guess the one thing that I kind of find interesting about, say you have like a 3-hour session, and obviously, if you know that it is like a I guess like a 10 episode series, I imagine there are still kind of like beats that you kind of still want to hit, kind of amongst every episode. I'm curious about like if there is any kind of, I don't know, is there like any method? Is there like is it just an internal sense that like maybe we can slow down a little bit here and kind of have that dialogue, or it's like, oh, maybe we need to speed up a little bit because this is like we're season 4 and we haven't even met anything that's going to go.
Person. Yeah. I think it's a little bit. Oh God, my brain's having a moment. Yes. I think it is a little. No, I'm not catching up. Come on, brain, you can do this.
It's fine. I like the fact that it's like at least like maybe I've passed it on to you. Like it's my like.
I caught the brain fog.
This is why this question was so hard to ask, because there's no way it can be answered.
Right? Okay, I can do this. Story beats, how it affects, because I was thinking about, GM conversations. Yes. So I think there's one of two ways, because it can kind of happen organically where you hope that your players are going to pick up on what you put down as a GM, or like as a kind of like a behind the curtains kind of thing. And most of the actual plays that I have participated in as a player, if it goes on, like if it's going to be like a campaign kind of thing, the GM will usually tell you ahead of time, here's what I hope to accomplish this session without really revealing anything. And then they'll be like, okay, there's going to be 2 opportunities. If you want a heart-to-heart moment with your characters, hopefully you'll pick up on the cue that I give you. And if not, we'll just move on. So it's kind of having a little bit of that communication back and forth with the person who's running the game to figure out, okay, are we going too slow? I think we just talked for 50 minutes about that car. Nobody even wants to steal that car. What are we doing?
But it is a nice car.
Right?
but no, it's kind of, I must admit, it's kind of fascinating because hearing about that kind of like behind the scenes stuff, because in fairness, it is something that like, it is applicable to home games as well. Like there is nothing stopping, like, and I think it is kind of those kind of revealing behind the curtain of like, this is you guys' collective kind of story. And these are the kind of opportunity seeds that like I'm kind of putting in together. You feel free to grab whichever ones you want, and we can go to on the adventure that you have. Because I think there is definitely like this view online that the DM by nature just should be prepared for anything the player should throw at them. And I think that there's a balance. I think there's always a line of like, okay, you guys players, I understand you guys want to now kill the mayor. And now become, I don't know, the mayor's like a council amongst the players. That's fine. It's not what I planned, but maybe we could like tone down the mayor side. But yeah. So I guess it's more generally then. Has there kind of like across some of the playcasts that you've ended up, has there kind of been like a spectrum of like the DM's like, no, honestly, you guys can throw whatever at me, and I can manage it, versus the kind of like, again, this is it's weird. It's like playcasts are like a stretched out film in their own kind of way. No,
absolutely. And it's been very 50-50 because there's absolutely the GMs. I'm the GM where it's like, you can throw anything at me because I don't plan my sessions. So give me whatever you want. I'll make it work. But I have nothing but respect for the people who do like genuinely plan their sessions. They have a goal in mind and they want you to help fulfill that goal, because otherwise, as a player, I would probably just go look at a pile of shoes and not think about the main story or story at hand.
So I guess, and kind of building on from that then, as a player, like how often are you kind of aware that like I'm being broadcast right now? I'm being like, there's an audience kind of at play, or like, is there that kind of the, like, I guess like flow state where you're just like, I don't even notice it anymore. I'm just here to not roll dice. I'm just here to monologue.
I wish I could have like a nicer answer to that, but honestly, I tend to moderate Twitch chat a lot. So I'm always very aware that like, these are the people that are watching what I'm doing and what I'm performing, and I will often interact with them in chat. So there's not really a moment where I'm like, oh, I can just pick my nose right. Oh crap. No. I'm usually like hyper aware of like, okay, I'm on stream. I'm on stream. Don't start drooling. Pay attention. Come on, you got this. And I guess you touched on like another kind of interesting point, which is I guess the process of moderation, because I guess if you don't necessarily like, again, I don't think every stream just has like mods on standby that can kind of run through, and sometimes it is the player that kind of that seems like an exceedingly tough task to try and juggle amongst kind of playing at the same time. It's so much. That is my sigh of resignation. Early in the days of like me getting into streaming, it was pretty much 100% on me. So I'd be moderating Twitch chat, I'd be producing the stream, I'd be jamming, I'd be wrangling the players, and just hope that it all goes smoothly and doesn't go up in flames. Now I don't produce my own streams. I usually will hire somebody for that. So thank heck for that. But I'm still often moderating chat, or if I'm GMing, I'm making sure all the socials are going out and I'm scheduling things like that. So there's always a lot on my plate, but I kind of like it that way. Like I always love a good game where I just show up and play the game and then leave, but I like to be a little bit more involved in the process because it feels like, I don't know, you can interact with the community a little bit more, and people often have like stakes in the character that you're playing, and like they want to know what's going to happen. So if you speak to them as a player, or reveal secret details about that character you're playing, it's meaningful.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of fascinating because like there's so much, again, it's going back to like what I said about like turning out to 11. There is so much more that goes into these actual kind of play podcasts that it are easy to kind of be kind of swept under the rug. I guess if you had to point to something, then is like for someone who's like, oh, I'll just record our session and then we'll just throw it on live and what have you. What do you think is like the biggest thing to kind of pay attention to, like as like an actual play?
In what regard do you mean?
I guess I'm going to throw back at you with the
okay.
What do you think's most interesting?
About like the process of making an actual play podcast, when like we're not just talking about like the recording part?
Yes, I think actually in putting it all together, yeah.
So I have never been a part of the editing process. I don't have the ability to sit and stare at that kind of stuff for a very long time, or like any of the mixing or adding music. I've seen people do it and that looks really cool. I have the boring answers of I really enjoy doing social media. Mm-hmm. I love making little graphics. I love putting together little pieces of art. I love putting together like we're going live soon, things like that. Yeah. And managing social media for a podcast or stream, it does require a lot because you constantly need that engagement. And especially like if your stream is going to YouTube later, you got to make sure folks know where to find it on YouTube. If it's a podcast, you have to let them know when the episode is going up. There has to be ways for people to engage so they can find your content, because it's pretty easy to get lost on Twitter sometimes. Mm-hmm. So like I love like I guess the marketing aspect of it. That's a lot of fun for me. If I could talk about what's not fun, which it really should be fun, but it's like making money. That part is stressful.
Yeah, because I think I think like there's like it's weird. Like I've been viewing kind of multiple industries, and I can see how they've almost been gone through like multiple booms of like, oh, there was like 10 people doing it, and now there's like 10,000 people doing it.
Yeah.
I think podcasting has kind of gone through a similar thing. I think even before the tabletop RPG industry did.
Absolutely. And like trying to monetize something like that, it's like Patreon or Ko-Fi or some kind of subscription service or ad revenue, but like getting all of that started is a bit of a stressor. And like you said, when you are a drop in the bucket of the podcast world, how do you make yourself stand out? Which is why, like, again, I think I love marketing because I feel like it's an actionable item that I can affect change for the content that I'm involved in.
If you don't, again, I don't want to give you away any like industry secrets or anything, but like, is it like kind of going back to what you said, is like one of the main parts is just putting out regular kind of content out there and just making sure people are suitably directed to it. It's like traffic lights. It's the kind of case of like, you need to come in over there, or
kind of. I mean, that's like the first thing that should be done. I think like engagement posts. Honestly, I am a big proponent of memes. Things like that. Yes. And like the best thing, like when I used to run the Broadswords Twitter, the things that got us the most engagement were like dorky ass memes that I put together about our goat in our campaign.
Nice.
We'd be posting about the episodes going live. We'd be posting about something good would happen to the GM. They would never get as much love as that goddamn goat. And I would just be like putting the goat's head over top of other comics, and that did great for us. And a lot of people found us through that way. Because beyond that, word of mouth or other podcasting, advertising on other podcasts, that helped. Like in the case of the Broadswords, we worked with Travis McElroy at the Adventure Zone, and that was a big boost for us. So like knowing people, but that's easier said than done.
Yeah. You just know people, just go out and
just know them.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I think it is that case of you. I think you touched on it as well, like the idea of like trying to stand out and like I guess knowing kind of your like a podcast identity, or like I get even like generally just knowing the identity of whatever you're trying to get in front of people. Just like yeah. Jeez. But I mean,
streaming pretty much follows the same method of, engagement, trying to interact with people, trying to make sure they tune in. Streaming is also a weirder kind of dragon in the sense that because you only stream for like 3 hours of a certain day in a certain week, not everybody can make that. Of course, there's VODs and stuff like that, but like there's always that appeal of being there live to be able to interact with the Twitch chat. Yeah. So like I am not a consumer of a lot of streams. I tend to watch like people play video games. But I always wonder, like, is it the same for those viewers that will kind of join your streams? Like, do they just listen to the stream as if it were a podcast later on? Like,
yeah, I guess one thing I find kind of fascinating about like the almost like accessibility side of like podcasters. So like again, like take our chat here. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be kind of distributed almost like a shotgun blast on every like
platform.
And it's always fascinating to hear those like individual stories like, oh, I listened to it on my morning drive, or I sit and watch the whole thing, or I have it on like my 7th screen, or
Yep, that sounds about right for some people.
Yeah, no, it probably like some programmers, I bet. Like, but
or streamers.
Yeah, no, tell a lie. Yeah, it's kind of it. The way people kind of engage with your content is always that kind of like fascinating question that isn't so easy to get an answer for, because it's a case of like, I guess you could ask them, but there's always more of them than there are of you.
Right. And like, where do I ask them? Because Twitter is a certain subset of like a very specific amount of listeners. Like if I go to other platforms, what kind of listeners or users am I going to get there? It's just something that I've dwelled on for a long time, because in the spaces that we are in, it's hard to kind of gauge the exact amount of engagement that you're getting for the content that you're putting out.
Yeah, because I guess it is that case of like engagement on like a spreadsheet could be like, oh, they're viewing the stream, but then realistically, like, are they maybe they're doing their ironing, maybe they're like model, like I don't want to go down the line of like everyone needs to be wearing eye scan software. I need to know the exact seconds that their eyes are on my eyes,
right? Unfortunately, give it 10 years, they'll be there.
Yeah, I've said that, but I think I've accidentally maliciously willed it into existence.
You put it into the universe.
You're
going to be the first for the eye scan software.
Yeah. I just hope that it just doesn't work with my glasses, so like it reflects. They're like, it's weird. You're looking in every which direction. It's like, yeah, that's my glasses. So I guess kind of more reflective then, to kind of look at everything you've done, what's the phrase I'm looking for? I'm not going to, either way, just looking across everything.
Okay. Looking. Yep.
Is there kind of like a lesson that like, if you had a time machine, you could go back to like, be just after your first broadswords episode, like, hey, you should know this thing?
Honestly, it would just be stop being so nervous and just have fun. I would get like, I would give myself stomach aches with like how anxious I would be right before a stream.
Yeah.
And then come stream time, there'd be like 15 people watching. I'm like, what am I nervous about? That is like a classroom of students. Like that is not a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like it is and it isn't, like I don't know why my armpit sweat is from my elbow to my belly button. It made no sense. And I was just irrationally nervous because growing up, I was terrible at public speaking. I couldn't do speeches. I wasn't a very well-spoken person, I guess. And then to all of a sudden get involved in the scene, I thought, oh my God, everybody's going to find out I am a fraud. I, in fact, cannot speak a single word ever. And it's going to come crashing down and burn on me. Lo and behold, none of that happened. And I'm doing just fine.
I think it's kind of like fascinating, because I guess it like, no, I don't want to get too deep or philosophical, but it's like the idea of like being seen. And I don't know what it is, but it's I went through the same process with this podcast where like I'm there, I'm chatting to like cool people, and I'm like, oh, this I'm not holding my side of the bargain of where I'm not even talking, I'm just looking for segues. That's all I'm here.
That is your job, and that's what like somebody in my position expects out of you. And like when you do that well, I don't think twice about like, oh my God, Matthew's doing it terribly. Like, no, you're killing it.
Gosh. See, now this is the part where you see the noted point of like where I'm flustered, and then I'm just like I lose it now, and then by the end of the podcast, everything just like a fire starts, and this is this is where it ends. But no, and I think it's kind of like that kind of sentiment kind of carries across pretty much with everything, and I feel like if you are nervous when you first start something, I think in a small way it is a good sign. Because I guess it kind of shows that you care about it. You want to kind of present yourself in the best way. And when you finally reach that point of like, yeah, no, I'm comfortable. I've kind of I know my shit.
Yeah, I know the weird faces that I'm going to pull when I say certain things, and like I'm just going to accept that fact.
Yeah. No, fair. And yeah, I unfortunately I don't think it is something that you can. I don't know if you can rush it. I don't know if you can like speed run through the nervous.
It has to happen naturally.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, I'm nervous this session and I'm cured. It's the case of like, no, you need to suffer for a little bit and then kind
If only I suffered for like a full year. Like it was ugh. But streaming regularly, podcasting regularly, again, playing with people I trust, playing with brand new people, going to conventions, that whole process really helped me in my confidence. And I'm heckin' grateful for that.
Nice. No. And kind of touching on like playing with again amazing kind of people and kind of being kind of involved with the community as a whole. Who would you say are like some of the people who kind of have been sources of inspiration?
Am I name dropping?
You can name drop if you want, or you can just
what kind of people?
No, I guess it is name dropping because I don't know how you could you describe someone in vaguities.
I mean, because like not everybody's gonna know the names that I'm putting out. I could describe like a certain kind of people. I've been involved in a lot of communities that they're not just, how do I put it? They're not just tabletop communities. Mm-hmm. They have diversity inclusive spaces. There's BIPOC only spaces. Mm-hmm. There are moderators that will make sure the conversations that are happening are in good faith. It's just like, I know the word safe spaces sometimes can be co-opted for something negative, but genuinely the people that are participating in the systems that are reinforcing safety tools, moderators, open conversations. These are the kind of people that I have had the best time playing with because they have made not only like a welcoming area in the tabletop industry, whereas let's be real, it's not always that great. They have just given me the tools that I can now take and put back into the community so I can do this for others.
Yeah. I think you kind of touched on the point that like the concept, the underlying of like a safe space is all the weights in the first word of safety. It's the fact that people themselves feel safe enough to kind of express themselves. They feel trusted themselves as well as that they can trust those in moderation or like leadership positions. Mm-hmm. And that can kind of lead to like all the warmth and friendliness kind of being spread about.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. I like that little wholesome note to end on. Although not end on because again I was about to check my watch. I'm not wearing a watch. It's force of habit.
I love that.
Yeah, you know what it is like I don't know at what point in my life I got so ingrained in sort of like physical comedy. It's just like that I don't know. There's not a watch there. I know what time it is, but I feel the need to let you know that I'm checking the time.
Yeah, I like that. That's because you probably interacted with a lot of people in person, back in the day when we did that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I tried to avoid it back then, and now I have a kind of like a better excuse. But I guess kind of more broadly then about some of the kind of interesting stuff that you're working on or kind of have kind of on the immediate horizon. Any cool stuff?
Yeah, actually I just put it on Twitter, like what I'm working on schedule. I think so far, other than I've got Power Play every Sunday. Mm-hmm. That's where I play the delightful little bean, Ulez Gali, who is, gosh, what are they up to right now? Honestly, they witnessed a murder. Oh. And they're having a hard time with it. They're supposed to be like, they don't have murders on the planet they're from. People never die. They just kind of get reintegrated into like parts. Okay. And their consciousness joins like the spire. Anywho, so Ulez has a lot to deal with emotionally.
That does sound like a lot. Like if you don't have the concept of death, that's
right. It's just an end. They like a couple seasons ago, they discovered like what do Americans have? The thing where they kill people in jail.
Or the execution, is that or
yeah, it's got like a word, the executions. Yeah, I know that, and that's horrible. And so my poor little character had to discover that, and like not only they were appalled, but I was also re-appalled because I forgot that happens.
It's like living vicariously through your character. You'll get
yes, learning about how awful human beings are.
It's sad that it doesn't often take much reminding.
No, it does not. Just turn on the news.
But other than Power Play, I cut you off.
Oh yeah, no worries. For podcasting, Anime Attaché is picking up again with our second season. We are going to be going through season 1 of Cowboy Bebop because that is coming out on Netflix, and everybody and their grandma is excited for that. Yeah. Iron Edda Reforged, which is a game designed by the other Tracy, it just finished its Kickstarter, and we have released, I think, the first 4 episodes of our podcast. I never remember what it's called. I always want to say Shoestrings. I don't know. Puppet strings.
I mean, what are puppet strings if not,
shoestrings?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, but that's pretty much all I have going on right now. I've been taking a little bit of break. I have a handful of like small podcast recordings here and there, but it's the end of the year. Like this is the time where it's like I should probably spend time with my family, i.e. my cat.
Which is, I imagine, off screen somewhere.
Somewhere in that pile of crap behind us.
Nice. But no, I especially there is definitely that kind of like winding down kind of energy of like as the year. And I think with me, around about Christmas time, or I think just after, is going to be my 2-year podcast anniversary.
Nice.
And it's always that case of like I need to. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about podcast anniversaries. It's always been like you feel like I should do something, but then it's a case of like, what do I talk? I talk to people. Do I talk to more people? Do I talk to like?
I mean, an anniversary thing, like especially in your case, if you had any like guests that were like your absolute favorites, or like the very first guest you spoke to, bringing them back is always a fun thing.
It's true. I must admit, I've been very fortunate. Whereas like in coming up, I've not had. I've been say fortunate in the sense that I haven't had a repeat guest. Which on surface sounds like people that haven't like either they've not made it through the podcast or they just don't want to come back. But because I've tried my best to kind of go out and kind of bring in like a as diverse a range of voices as possible, I haven't had to invite anyone back. But maybe I should. That's a good.
Yeah, do it for like an anniversary thing. That seems fitting.
Little round table.
Yeah.
I might steal that advice.
I got you.
Yeah, I will send you a consultation fee after this podcast, and then we can.
Perfect.
Nice. Well, then I guess kind of in closing, because I'm not gonna look at the watch. I'm just gonna trust that it is towards the end of our approved time together. But for the people kind of listening, if they want to stay up to date with everything that you're kind of getting up to, where are like some of the best places to do that?
If you actually want to follow like the tabletop stuff I do, Twitter, I am at Bee_Zelda. If you want to see like pictures of my cat, I have like 3 cats now, and a dog and a girlfriend. It's like I just moved in and I all of a sudden went from like very few animals to many animals and another human. So I post a lot more personal things there, but I also put all my cosplay looks that I do. And that is Bee_Zelda_. And if you want to support me, Ko-Fi, coffee, I never know how to pronounce it, but I'm also Bee_Zelda there.
Nice. No, fantastic. Yeah, I know it could be like to suddenly be inundated with animals and a person. But no, honestly, Bee, thank you so much for taking some time to sit and have this chat. It's been delightful. I like I said, it feels like the kind of like 2 work colleagues who are in the same department, but they work in different companies. There's just that kind of mutual understanding of like,
we can do it. Okay, I do it this way, but how have you lasted that long? Only getting stabbed by your brother and having him steal your shoe. Come on.
Yeah, like I said, you would think it would happen more often, but yeah, that once was enough to make like, no, I'm not having any more brothers.
Never again.
Yeah, never again. But yeah, no. Other than that, I guess. I guess I'll say after Matthew Whitby. You can find me at Whitby Writes on Twitter, because that's my surname and that's what I do. Other than that, I guess it is time for my last and honestly my favorite question of the podcast. So Bee, how do you end a podcast?
Well, I was thinking long and hard about all the things that could go wrong at the beginning of this.
Because we did mention how like I most like apparently it's good practice for podcasters to record both ends of the conversation in case you lose one end, and I just don't. I'm just reckless. I live by the wind.
Live dangerously, and it fills me with fear. So I think the podcast should probably end with, I don't know, like a small fire in our computer towers.
Okay. This is where like as I'm talking here, there's like a very bad like 2-frame animation of fire that just gets bigger and bigger until
it consumes the screen.
Yeah.